Hey, welcome to the channel of Bird Dog Austria. My name is Fred Grössenbrunner. I'm from Austria. I'm the pilot of a Cessna Lima 19er Oscar 1 bird dog. This is my baby. It's a 1953 bird dog, an A model that flew for the United States Army. My dad flew the bird dog for more than 20 years in the Austrian Army, and he collected more than 5,500 hours. Luckily, he was my instructor. Thanks, Dad. I'm also a member and safety director of the International Bird Dog Association. Our mission is to keep the stories of the pilot that flew the bird dog in combat alive. This series here now is called Cessna Oscar 1 Lima 19er Bird Dog Legends over Vietnam. We want to keep your stories alive for the next generation. Thank you for your service. Finally, we got Doc CLEMENT here. It's an honor to have you here, Doc. You flew for the Cat Killers as CATKILLER 18, the bird dog in Vietnam. It's an honor to have you here. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, I'm, like I say, Doc Clement, started out in the aviation family. My dad flew World War II, flew C-47s, DC-3s out of Tripoli into Russia, flying supplies into Russia, doing there. And I remember he told me, he said Russia had to know 2 weeks ahead of time who the pilots were. And when he would land on the field in Russia for him to unload the airplane, they wouldn't let him taxi in. He had to stay on the airfield at runway itself, get out, stand on the wing. There'd be a guy with a gun, holding a gun on them while they unloaded the airplane and then made them get back in the airplane, take off. Now, that's when we were giving supplies to Russia. But anyhow, he came back and got a job with Resort Airlines out of Southern Pines, North Carolina, and heard that Piedmont Airlines was going to start up in Winston-Salem. And he went up and talked to Mr. Davis, who was the owner of the airline, and he was hired. He was the third pilot hired. Actually, what they did, they hired 12 pilots. They had 6 captains and 6 co-pilots. Okay, they had 3 DC-3s. Okay, and the captains drew straws for seniority. Okay,
Okay.
because they were all starting. They were all starting at the same time, see, and they had drew the third straw. Okay, so that's how he ended up there. And from that day on, it was the day to hire was your seniority. The day you got hired by Piedmont. So anyhow, he was one of the originals, and he was chief pilot there in town here and several other places around the system. And I got to know all those pilots, and they were all World War II pilots. And I wish I'd spent more time, talking to them and listening to their stories. Because, they'd come over the house and I'd hear them sitting around talking about it sometimes. Kind of interesting. But anyhow.
This is exactly why we are talking now. This is exactly why we do this.
Okay. And I remember sitting on my daddy's lap, flying a DC-3, carrying passengers, and then some of the other guys had little Piper Cubs, and they would take me up in a Piper Cub, and let me fly a little bit. So I knew from the time I could crawl, I was going to fly. That's all there was to it. And so I always wanted to be an, airline pilot. And I had asked my dad, remember in high school, if he would help me fly. He said, no, you get it just like I did. You go out there and work for it. And I worked at the airport and washed airplanes, gassed them, cleaned the toilets in the buildings and that kind of stuff. And I would trade it. I'd work from Friday to Sunday night and trade that for 45 minutes of flight time. and a
Oh, okay.
Veronica Champ, Veronica AC Champ, 65 horse. And that's what I first soloed in. So, and that was my, really first experience. And by the time I got in the military, I may have had, 30 or 40 hours, but I didn't have anything official, because my buddy had an airplane. We'd go take it and fly around. He didn't have a license either.
Yeah, but you already had some tailwheel experience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had the tail wheel experience. I probably got, I don't know, maybe 7,000 or 8,000 hours tail dragger time, altogether. They're just second nature to me, which is a big deal today. These kids, they can't comprehend the tail dragger, So it's different. I've checked a few guys out in my bird dog here that turned out to be pretty good pilots. I got one buddy that just got on with Frontier Airlines that I checked him out in my L19. And that was nice, L19. Everybody come, want to see that thing. It was nice. Had it set up nice. But anyhow, somebody wanted it worse than I did, and I've been buying and selling airplanes about every keep it for about a year or so, and then turn around and sell it and buy something else, So
okay.
So I go out the airport every day and hang out there, and I have a man cave out there that's got heated and air conditioned and refrigerator and microwave and all that stuff, coffee pots and all that, and a kitchen table, and then I got a couple of lounge chairs I can take a nap in the afternoon. So, okay.
Sounds like a real man cave.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'd still go out there every day. I've got my an RV8 out there, and it's cranked up a little bit. It's pretty sharp. I just put in a whole new glass panel on it. But anyhow, that's just kind of what I do. I hang out with my flying buds. So it keeps me out of the pole bars, you know what I mean? So anyhow, see what
but
else.
How did you then continue to flight school, and how did the story go on?
Okay. Well, what happened was Vietnam came along. I got drafted. As soon as I got draft notice, I went down, and signed up for the warrant officer flight program. They had a warrant officer flight program. I had to take a test, and here in the county here, and they said I scored the highest anybody ever on that thing, and said, you're going to be a warrant officer. I said, okay. So they sent me to basic training and then to AIT, advanced individual training.
In Fort
and
Stewart?
That was it. Huh?
In Fort Stewart?
Yeah. Well, you had your basic training, and I did that down in Fort Stewart, Georgia.
Yeah.
Fort Gordon, Georgia. Okay. And then I went up to Fort Knox, Kentucky for the advanced individual training in reconnaissance. So while I was there, I would go down to the main office because they had a Armor OCS, Officer Candidate School there. And I said, and everybody's telling me, said, you need to go ahead and get rated as an officer and then go to flight school. I said, okay. So I got in Armor OCS, just happened to be a high harassment company they just started. We started out with 250, graduated 67. Okay. And so they were on us pretty good. And then towards the very end, they said, everybody wants to go to flight school, take the test. Of course, I'd taken it before and it was a breeze, and they said, okay, you're going to go to flight school. I said, all right. And I said, when? They said, well, we don't know yet. So they assigned me as S3 for the 14th Military Intelligence Battalion at Fort Bragg. Well, I got over there and had a couple of E8 sergeants that, took care of me because I had no clue what I was doing there, And I got a hold of my branch up in Washington, And I talked to this little old lady up there, and I told her the story. I said, look, I want to go to fixed wing. I don't want to go to helicopter, you know. And she says, you want the next class? I said, well, Lord, yeah, you know. Boom, I was gone. Fixed wing down to Fort Stewart, Georgia, just like Charlie did. You know,
okay.
we were flying the T-41, which is a 172 with a 210 horse engine. Okay.
High performance, yeah.
Yeah. So I went down there and we did that for, I guess it was 3 or 4 months. And then we went to Fort Rucker, Alabama. And we started out in the T-42, which was a Beechcraft Baron, the B-55. And we got our multi-engine instrument ticket with that. Okay. And then from there, we went to the final phase, D phase, which was the Bird Dog. And we got 50 hours, if I remember correctly. I don't know. It's been so long, you know. And, but we flew the Bird Dog. And I had an instructor, you know, he'd been in Vietnam and he had flown over there. And, you know, they didn't really give you a whole bunch of info about what to do over there. And I never fired a rocket in school either. You know, it was all over there in Vietnam where I learned how to, you know, punch those things off. But it doesn't take it but a couple. And, you know, you get it figured out and you see that thing go out and make a big loop and keep going, you know.
But you saw all those videos because there's a video how to shoot the rockets.
No,
you didn't see that in flight school. Oh, that's interesting.
Well, I may have. Now, that's been a long time ago. They may have shown us that and signed us off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyhow, and then I had, once I got through with flight school, I had 30-day leave and they sent me to Nam. Okay. Well, I started out up at Travis Air Force Base up in Washington and went over to Tokyo. We landed in Tokyo and there was 175 of us on this Boeing 707. Okay. And they wouldn't let us off the airplane. The airplane was on the ground for 4 hours.
Okay? Oh, God.
Yeah. And they wouldn't let us off the airplane. They're afraid we were going to run off, you know. So while they were fueling and servicing the airplane, then we went on and got landed in Cambron Bay. Okay.
Did you just say they were afraid that you will run off?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some of the guys would, you know, run off, you know, if they didn't have control on you. Well, coming back, I did the same thing, but they had this cage, big cage they marched us into, like a prison cage. And we sat there on the tarmac for 4 hours while they serviced the airplane, then let us back on the airplane. But anyhow, I got down to Cambron Bay and
but Doc, before we continue here, I just have 2 or 3 more questions about flight school. You had experience from flying the Cup, so you already had tailwheel experience. How was the transition to the Bird Dog? Was it no big deal for you?
It wasn't any big deal.
Okay.
You know, I didn't have any trouble with it at all. You know, I had a little bit of tail wheel experience. I had helped quite a bit. So it wasn't a problem with me, you know, as far as flying the airplane or anything.
Okay. Were you actually in the same class like Charlie?
No, Charlie was, I think, about 3 or 4 classes behind me. I got to Vietnam about a month or so before Charlie did.
Okay.
And that's why I saw him come in. I was up there fighting on the DMZ, and he's sitting there in the Oak Club in Fubao with crutches writing letters to his wife. Okay. And we said, this is a gold breaker right here now.
Okay.
And he was far from it. But that's what he had to go through when he first got there, you know.
So when you came to Vietnam, as you told the story here, when you continue, did they just push you in the Bird Dog and say, hey, there's the enemy, go? Or how was it?
No, when I first, well, let me tell you the story. I got into Cambron Bay and, you know, going through the process, they said, okay, you're going to Da Nang. And I said, how far west is that? They say that's as far north as you can go is Da Nang. I said, okay. So I get on C-130, you sitting on your duffel bag, no seats on there, just, and it's hot as hell. And you got 3 or 4 guys throwing up around you. It's just a mess. Get up there to Da Nang, and I get up there to a replacement company up there, and they say, you're going to go to Phu Bai. I said, how far west is that? They said, that's far north as you can go, Phu Bai. I said, okay. So that's what they told me last time when I hit, Da Nang. Well, I was sitting there at the Black Cat Club in Marble Mountain in Da Nang, and they flew Hueys, and I was sitting in there one evening, and of course they called Da Nang Rocket City. So everybody said, "Oh, you going to Rocket City?" So I didn't think too much about it. I'm up there, and I'm in the 82nd club up there having a beer, listening to rock and roll music. Somebody stuck their head in the door and said, "Incoming." Well, the place emptied. Nobody told me what incoming meant. I'm a FNG. You know what I mean? I said, maybe I better follow these guys out of there. And it was just like being in the movies. I swear it was. I went running out there, and the guys was going in this bunker, and I was sitting there at the head of the bunker, standing outside. They said, what's going on? They said, well, we got 122s coming in. I said, what's that? And about that time, kaboom, a 122 hit, and you couldn't get me out of the back of that bunker, I can tell you. I mean, you get educated real fast. You know what incoming is, for a change. So anyhow, I get there, and they say, you going to Phu Bai? Okay, here I go to Phu Bai. And then I get up to Phu Bai, and they said, well, you're single, and you're new. We're going to send you to 1st Platoon at Dong Ha. I said, how far west is that? They said, you can't go any further. It's only 7 miles from North Vietnam. I said, oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Huh?
I knew I was in the shit now,
Yeah.
Okay, so when I got to Phu Bai with the CATKILLERs, John Kovac, he was the company IP at the time, and he checked me out. And he was a maintenance officer also, another story I'll tell you about. But he checked me out, in the Bird Dog. And once he signed me off, and they sent me up to Dong Ha. And that was my introduction up there at Dong Ha. I got up there with all the older guys that were rotating out. And I'd see them come off, land, go in the shack there, have that far away look in their eye. And you'd ask them questions, and they'd answer some of them, but now I was asking a lot of questions.
Of course.
They said, don't worry, we're going to send you with a Marine backseat, very experienced. And his name is Happy, Captain Happy. And he was a real storybook Marine. Okay. He'd spent at least 6 months in the DMZ as a company man or platoon leader. Okay. And so he knew artillery backwards and forward. He knew TAC air backwards and forward. And he comes out there, to the shack. And he said, you Lieutenant Clement? I said, yep. He said, well, I got you. He said, don't worry about nothing. I'll take care of everything. I'll handle all the radios, everything. I said, okay.
Okay.
So we go out there and get in the airplane, and I started up, and I'm sitting there. And he finally said, what in the hell are you doing? I said, what do you mean? You said you'd handle the radios. I was waiting on you to call the tower. That's how shook I was.
Okay.
He said, you FNG, you call the tower. You handle the tower. I'll handle everything else. I said, okay. So we take off, and up there on the DMZ, and we get right up on the DMZ, and he gets excited. He sees these rocket emplacements. Okay. that were dug out. And he said, now look over here. He said, now look down there and see this. I couldn't see nothing. I mean, it just, it was probably 20 or 30 days before anything would start standing out at you. You had to sit there and look at this stuff and look at this stuff, and then the details would start coming to you. But it wasn't anything you could, go up there and instantly do. I could take you for a ride up there on the DMZ, and I'd see 20 different things. You may see one. 30 days later, you're seeing all 20 things I'm seeing. Okay? Because you're up there, 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day, looking at the ground, looking at this, looking at that, changing your altitude, climbing, getting on the treetops, all that stuff. Okay? And then things start coming out, just standing out at you that you would never see before. So it just didn't happen overnight. So Happy, when I was, when he got those rocket emplacements, I still couldn't see them. And he said, I'm going to scramble some jets. And he called Dong Ha-Des. Dong Ha-Des, Direct Air Support Center of the DMZ. Okay. All right. They scrambled some flights, F-4s out of Da Nang, the gunfighters. And they come up and he briefs them on station, and he says, we'll mark the target. And of course, I got 4 rockets. I never fired one before, Yeah. and I said, I don't see what you want to shoot. He said, I've got the stick and rudder back here. He says, I'll fly the airplane when I tell you to punch the trigger, punch the trigger. I said, okay.
Okay.
So he brought it around and started coming down. He said, okay, fire. And I fired, when the smoke rocket goes down, and he's got the jets, coming on lead. And they said, lead from, from my smoke, let's go 12 o'clock, 50 meters, and I'm racking the airplane around to the left or something. Here comes the jet smoking in there. Boom, boom, and Dash 2 is coming in. He said, okay, Dash 2 from Dash 1's hit. Let's go 10 o'clock, 25 meters, And he dropped the whole thing. All I did is just stayed in a racetrack pattern, for it. And that was my first experience. And I had no clue what was going on. I mean, it was just Greek, He's talking on the radio, talking to Dong Ha-Des, all that. Well, after about 30 days, I started getting understanding what's going on and what I could do, and artillery, TAC air, what all the ordnance was. And in the evening up there, I had a tent that was next to the desk tent. And Captain Jones, he was Marine type. He had been an F-4 driver with Marines. He was OIC of Dong Ha-Des, officer in charge of Direct Air Support Center of the DMZ. Well, he and I got to be good buddies, and every evening we'd go have a drink together. And I said, look, Tom, I said, why don't I take you for a ride up here? You've never seen it up here, so I got him, and he came out to the airfield, and I swear he had so many knives and guns on him. I didn't know if the damn airplane was going to be able to get off the ground. I mean, he was ready for bear. And so we take off, and I show him all the.
But those marine backseaters, they weren't any kind of aviators, huh?
No. Tom Jones was the only one. All those others were not aviators, but we gave them stick time, so in case we got hit, they could bring the airplane back to the field. Okay. So we did that. Now Tom, he jumps in the back seat. Now he's used to F-4s, right? And the back seat windows are open. Okay. And he gets in there, and we take off. These windows are open. He'd never seen anything like this, and the noise and carry on. And I'm taking him up on the DMZ and showing him, everything from Conti to Charlie 1, all of them. And then I start going up into North Vietnam. And he says, "Isn't that the Ben Hai River we just crossed?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What are we doing up here in North Vietnam?" I said, "Well, I had to bring you up here so you could say you've been here, And while he was sitting there, I reached up and armed all 4 rockets. Okay. And he's sitting there, and these rockets are right here behind, with the windows open. And I fired them off, and I thought he was going to come out of that back seat. I swear to God, he thought we'd been shot and we were going down, And I got the biggest kick out of that. But anyhow, brought him back. And I told Tom, I said, "Tom, let me tell you." He said, "You boys that run the Dong Ha desk underground with the big plastic, up there and marking everything." I said, "They've never seen any of this stuff. Let me carry each one of them on a visual tour." And that's what I did. And I had a reason for my madness. They all got to know me. And if I ever needed anything, or if I went down, they'd come and get me.
Yeah,
They'd
smart,
bring
very
everything.
smart.
They'd bring everything in the world after me. And Tom would say, when I'd scramble air, say, "CATKILLER 1-8 needs some air." He said they'd mute me until he got the air for me, because they knew me. And that made a big difference up there, getting what you wanted and what you wanted to do. So as soon as I took off, when CATKILLER 1-8 was up, they all knew what I was up to. So,
okay. That's another question. You have been CATKILLER 1-8, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. How was it to come to the CATKILLERS? Was there kind of ceremony to be a new CATKILLER? Did you have to drink 20 beers, or was there something similar?
Well, I just, basically gotten out of college. I played football on a scholarship at college. Okay. So I was pretty stout, even though I'm short. I was pretty stout. Nobody would mess with me. And so I didn't have that problem at all, and I didn't back down from nothing. But yeah, I didn't drink that much. I wasn't that much of a drinker. And but I drank a few beers, but I don't really remember getting ridiculous. That's me in the red and blue t-shirt right there.
I know, and now I understand why nobody wants to mess with you.
Yeah. But see, I had a Marine flight suit on, okay, and I kept bugging Charlie. I said, "Charlie, when are they going to let you have a Marine flight suit?" And I'd bug the hell out of him about it till he finally got one. But that was a big thing, having a Marine flight suit.
But that's also interesting. There are 3 sorts. Some guys are having the jungle fatigues.
Yeah.
And Charlie is having a complete overall.
Yeah, that's the flight suit we had in flight school that Charlie has on.
Okay.
Okay. And then the other guys have the regular jungle fatigues, and then I had the Marine flight suit on. The flight suit I had on was Nomex.
You had Nomex. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That Marine flight suit was Nomex.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I flew with. Now, I didn't have a bullet bouncer like Charlie wore. I just wore a flak vest is all I wore. And
did you also wear gloves?
Yeah, we were supposed to.
Okay.
We were supposed to, but I'm telling you what, you get in that bird dog at 500,000 feet, and it's 85, 90 degrees on the ground there. You're hot. You got closed in, and you have your windows closed up here in your cockpit area, and the back seat had his windows open. So he could stay cooler than you could. Okay. And I couldn't open my windows because he had the maps back there. And if I opened my windows, they'd be flying everywhere. So I had to keep them closed. And I had an air vent up there, where the air vent is on each side of right above the wing, that you pull out, slide out, slide in, out. Yeah. and I would just put my sleeve up there and have that air directed coming down in my sleeve, to blow. And then I had a canteen, and I had my folks, they would send the Kool-Aid, little packs of Kool-Aid, and I would put a pack of those Kool-Aid in my water canteen before I take off. And that's what I drank. And I'd drink a whole canteen while you were flying. I mean, you'll lose anywhere from 3 to 5 pounds flying up there. I mean, you come back after a mission and you're racking that airplane, bullets are flying everywhere. You got F4s flying all right next to you. I mean, you get pretty excited and you get into it. I mean, it's a real thing, just like being in the movies, I'm telling you. And
you've been completely dehydrated.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so anyhow, typical mission up there, like the way I ran mine, everybody had their own technique, the way they, did theirs. But if I had a target, I'd call Dong Hades and say, hey, scramble 2 or 3 flights of Fox 4s with Snake and Nate. Okay. And in the meantime, my back seat is cranking up artillery. All right. And say we're shooting something in the DMZ. So whether we got an 8-inch 155 or 175s. 175s we never normally fired up in North End now. But anyhow, we'd be cranking those things up. We have to say we have troops in contact. All right. So I got.
But that's interesting. I didn't know that. So you, as the pilot, you brought up the air power on station, and the artillery was directed from the backseat from the Marine?
Pretty much, yes. We could do it also. We could do it also, but our back seat had been on the ground for 6 months, and they were forward air controllers, and they could fire their artillery.
Yeah. Okay.
So they were sharper at that than we were.
Okay.
I was probably sharper at with the fixed wing coming in than they were, but you had to coordinate it together. So as soon as I'd bring my jets on station, he'd have to shut down the artillery. Okay. So we had a intercom in the airplane, and I could hear his transmission. He could hear mine. All right.
But you had 2 radios, or you had 2 radios. You could speak with the planes at the same time he could speak with the artillery.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And then we had an intercom between us.
Mm-hmm.
But I could hear his transmission. He could hear mine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I would tell them, okay, they'd ask me where I was, and I'd say, okay, off channel 69. I think Dong Ha was channel 69 on the VORTAC. And I say, okay, I'm, 350 degrees for, 8 miles or so. And the jets would come on station and have a grease pencil, and they'd check in with me, and I'd write the call sign on the my window, on my plastic, window with my grease pencil.
Yeah.
So I would start, at the top, and so I knew which flights I had going down. Okay, and when they would get on station, I tell my back seat, I said, okay, we're gonna start bringing in on some passes, get them lined up. I said, you need to cut off the artillery. So he cut off the artillery, and I would give them a target area where it was. I could scribe it to them so they could basically see, and then I would roll in and put in a white phosphorus rocket. Okay. And
how did you roll in? Did you make this how it is in the movie, fly, and then you put a 90 degrees dive?
Not 90 degrees. I would fly, say, straight level, and then I'd turn 90 degrees to the right and come down and level my wings, and then I'd fire my rocket, and then I'd pull off another 90 degrees and come back around. Okay. So now they could Dash 1 could see my smoke coming up, and I'd have him on the run-in heading, and I would get right on top of the friendlies and come back facing him as I saw him coming down. Okay. And I said, okay, I want one napalm or Delta 2 or Delta 3 or whatever they were. And I said, the only way I said, you got me in sight. Say, Roz, the only way you drop on friendlies is on top of me. And I'd get right beside him. He'd drop that bomb, go, whoom. You'd feel it in the airplane. And I'd rack that airplane around in 360, come back around. Dash 2 is coming down, and I'm coming around. I said, Dash 2, you got me in sight. Say, Rod's only way you drop on friendlies on top of me. You're cleared for 1 Delta 1. Whoa. And then we just keep going until they're dry. Okay, till they're empty. Okay, but I would stay on top of the friendlies to make sure nobody got, fragged anything.
Okay.
And that's the way I ran mine.
Yeah.
And then in between, while I'm briefing another flight after the first one's already empty, I'm briefing another flight. We're bringing in the artillery again. And while I'm briefing the next flight, artillery's coming in, and we're doing that. And the guys on the ground maneuvering around. If we have to, I'm on the treetops, M16 out the window, fully automatic. Didn't make any difference where you hit anything or not. It was a psychological effect of all those tracers, because I put every round a tracer in my M16. It's more psychological.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the more firepower, the more they're going to keep their head down. So anyhow, by the time I get through briefing and bringing Dash 1 again, here we go again, and they could see the fire that was coming up from the other flights, in that area. And I would start directing them in on that instead of wasting another rocket on them, and start up the same pattern again. I'd come in, I'd look up there and see him coming down there about 450 knots coming down at me. And I said, the only way you drop on friendlies on top of me now. I said, let's have Dash 1 Delta 2, 50 meters from my target there. It's okay, boom. And here we go again. And I track pattern, and I keep this up till they were empty, And then in between, here comes our artillery again. So by the time you get through with all this, you're about like a wet noodle. You just
that's totally interesting, because I read, I think 2 or 3 years ago, I read the story about Captain Hillard Wilbanks. He got the Medal of Honor, and I also read, oh my God, he was shooting with his rifle out of the bird dog, and sadly finally got shot. And I think this was unique. But hey, with everyone I spoke so far, all of you guys used your M16 or whatever to shoot down. Yeah. I had an interview with Gene Francis. He was also a shotgun pilot like David, and I'm gonna share with you this picture. It shows actually what you guys have always done. It's this here.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now what I would do though, see, I would lay the M16 across my left arm, okay, and I would fly with my left hand, okay, and I would fire with my right hand. See, I would have the gun laying across my arm where near my elbow there, and I'd be flying with my left hand and have the gun laying across here.
Okay.
Yeah, and then flying with this one and firing with this one. And when I did that, I just pushed power all the way up. I'd come down there and fully automatic, always had the power on so I could pull on out of there. But that's the way I did it now. And I dropped a few grenades also. Did some CS grenades, knocked out a 50 cal pit with a CS grenade one time. Came in there up on the DMZ, and there was a 50 cal just hosing everybody down up there, and they was bringing in Chinooks. We had an operation going, and I had targets of opportunity when I first went up there to hit anything I saw in that area. And because we were maybe an hour or so away from bringing in about 40 or 50 troops in there. Okay. And so I was hitting everything I could. And then when they started coming in, these mortars started in, and I could see over there to the west near Conti Inn where they were set up. So I went over there, to stop this stuff. And what I did, I was already out of rockets because I'd already hit a lot of targets of opportunity there. I was out of rockets. All I had was a couple of CS grenades.
Mhm.
And I told my back seat, I said, pull the pins on these, hold your clip, put your arms, both arms, one in each hand, out the window. Okay. And when I tell you to drop, you drop. Okay. So I came in behind them, on the 50 cal pit, and I came down there and I told him to drop. And of course, the gun was going off and firing and carrying on, and pulled out of there. I said, you drop? He said, no, I got excited. I said, damn. So I had to come back in again across that damn pit, but I did it in another 90-degree different angle. And we dropped and we got them in the pit, and it silenced the the mortars in 50 cal there.
Wow, okay. But you had to fly pretty low, huh?
I was, I'd say about 5 feet off the ground, when I went across
5 feet.
Yeah. You think about it, many times I'll be down there on the deck and maybe 10 feet high, look over there and see 10 or 15 NVA laying on the ground. You think they're dead. You're checking out and see if they're dead or if it's Marines down there. And I go by them, and all of a sudden they all stand up. I could see the white of the eye with the guns from the hip firing straight at me. And that's the only thing that saved me. The bullets went right behind the fuselage. See?
Okay. Wow.
And, but let me tell you another kind of funny story, but it wasn't a whole bunch of fun, but this guy comes out there to the line shack, at Don Hall, and carrying an M60 machine gun with a couple of, belts with it. And he says, and he was one of our Army artillery officers that flew with us in the back. And he says, how about taking me up there on the DMZ? I want to fire at something north head now. I said, okay. I said, we'll go do that. So we jump in the airplane. He's got the M60 out the left window, and I go up there and I said, where you want to go? And he shows me, and I said, what altitude you want me at? He said, 400 feet. Well, 400 feet's kind of a death altitude. Either you're on the ground or treetop, or you're, 800 feet or above, So I said, okay. So I lined up parallel right over the Ben High River. And I'm trying to hold it real steady for him, to fire. And I hear the da 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 da. And just went on. I said, damn, he's going to burn that barrel up, And he just still fired. And about that time, something hit me in the back of the head. And I turned around and looked, and it was him. He hadn't fired the first shot. That was them firing at us.
Gosh.
and his eyes were big as saucers back there. Hell, I didn't know. I thought that was him firing. I said, you want me to make another pass? He said, hell no. No. So, anyhow, just kind of a funny story, but it's funny, but it's not funny,
But it's incredible. The Bird Dog isn't really a fast plane. You fly with 85 knots or whatever, 90 knots. Yeah. You had the constant speed. So with the constant speed, maybe 100 knots, but not more. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is still enough that the enemy has it really hard to hit you.
Well, you got to understand when you come up on them and you're that low, they can't pick that gun up and aim it at you. They're only shooting from the hip.
Mm-hmm.
You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
So they aren't really aiming at you. When you come by that low, they're grabbing the gun and just trying to shoot at you. And it usually goes right behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, and you're banking in between trees and go down behind trees and come back up at a different angle on and come across them. So
So, but in your area, there was a very intense jungle, or with a high jungle, or what were the conditions? Because in David's area, everything was more or less flat with rice paddies and so on. You didn't have rice paddies up there, huh?
no, up in North Vietnam, you saw some rice paddies and all, but in the DMZ and what we called the Leatherneck Square. Leatherneck Square was from the Ben Hai River south to Dong Ha in a square, you know, and that's where at the top of it up there on the Ben Hai River, you had the Charlie 1, the Alpha 3 fire base, and the Cantien fire base. Okay. And that comprised the northern end of it. And Dong Ha was the southern end of it. And then you had Highway 1 that comprised the east side of it. Okay. And the other highway coming from Quezon down to Cam Lo made the other. So it was called Leatherneck Square. Okay. Because that's where the Marines were up there.
Okay.
And I remember when I first got up there, I would do convoys. They were running convoys out to Quezon area.
And it was jungle, or it was everywhere you flew in this area, you had thick jungle.
Yeah. Well, now the jungle up in the Leatherneck Square was really not that much jungle at all, because there were so many bomb craters and blown out in areas, you know, of fighting up there. I remember I called a battalion of NVA in the Leatherneck Square one time. Okay. Well, they brought in, and I called them. I said, "Hey, look, you got to have some tanks and heavy firepower up there." And I just brought in TAC air, and it was just like shooting ducks on a park. I mean, I was knocking them out of, out all over the place. And then they brought in tanks overnight in the Leatherneck Square, you know, and pointing in there. And like Charlie and I like Charlie said, they had underground bunkers that we didn't know about. And they just went right under. And we couldn't, we could see plenty of blood trails, but we couldn't find any bodies, you know. So that's what we were dealing with, and we didn't know it. All right.
Yeah, but that's interesting. The Vietnam War already started many years or some years before you actually came up there, and nobody knew about the bunkers.
They didn't tell us. It was just the same way the first time we flew in North Vietnam. I was up there in that group that they told us to go north. They said, "What are we against?" They said, "We don't know." They didn't tell us we was, quad 50s radar control. Didn't tell us radar control 37, 57, 85 millimeter flight.
You didn't know? Wow. Okay.
No. We learned that on our own. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, but why? Even the guy who showed you the area, he didn't tell you about all those threats?
Well, no, because nobody had been up in North Vietnam before. We were the first ones. We were the first ones. Me and my group were the first ones that flew North Vietnam. Okay. So we didn't know. We didn't know how to fly against them. All we knew, we would have a low ship and a high ship. So, but what would happen a lot too, they would bring down, NVA would bring down about 6 of their heavy artillery pieces, I think called 153s or something like that, 152s or something like that. And they would hit Dong Ha, okay, down there at the airfield. And I'd be there in the line shack, and all of a sudden we start having incoming from heavy artillery. I'm running out there, jump in the airplane, take off. I close the door, strap in after I'm airborne, going against those guns, because they won't stop until we stop them.
Okay, see? Well.
So as I'm climbing on out, I'm calling Dong Ha desk, scrambling Fox 4s with snake, a lot of snake eyes, bring them up there to knock these guns out, because they would not stop until we knocked those guns out, period. So they were firing. And you went up there, you could see them, the smoke coming out of the barrels up there, and you bring the jets in there. And then as soon as you do all that, all the flak and the quad 50s and everything would be hosing you down, look like beehives coming at you. I mean, seriously, look like green beehives, because they had green tracers. And you're trying to knock those guns out, and they won't stop until you do knock them out. So,
but was there always air power available, or were there times that you made a call and they said, "Sorry, at the moment we have nothing"?
I never had that problem.
Really? Wow.
Those guys at Dong O Desk, they looked after me. Trust me.
Okay.
They could bring in naval gun. They could bring in anything. I mean, naval fighters. They could bring in anything. So if they had some naval fighters coming back from up north that still had an ordnance, they couldn't land on the ship with the ordnance on there. So they'd stop by Dong O, anything you need, and I'd run some of those. So those boys, those Marines looked after me.
Okay, interesting. So it was really planned into the detail. So were there always F4s or A4s up in the air waiting for someone?
Yeah. I
okay.
would stack them. When I'd have a battle going on, I'd stack them sometimes 2 and 3 high. I'd give the first one, 10,000, second one, 11,000, next one, 12,000, and I'd bring them down just like that.
Okay. Wow. It's so interesting because actually you guys controlled the battle.
Exactly. We controlled the whole battle, period. They couldn't do anything without us and without our approval. I mean, that is true.
And you've always been in contact with the ground troops and telling them, hey, take care, the VC or the North Vietnamese army is pushing from this side?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And we could see, a little bit more than they could, when we get down and see where they are and let our Marines know.
Yeah, but to manage this and to coordinate all this, the air power, the artillery and everything, did you learn a little bit in flight school, or was this everything new and you had to teach them yourself?
You learned yourself. Like I say, when I first got up there, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, all this was going on. Nobody told me all this stuff, I go up there and you learn by experience, OJT, on the job training. Okay. And that's the way you did it. And you learn fast or you weren't there. You're going to hurt somebody. So, and like I say, I played football in college. You ain't going to back me down. I'm going after you. And if a guy shot at me, I didn't stop until he was dead.
Okay.
I'm telling you. That's the attitude you had to have. If you're going to survive this, it's not for the faint of heart. When I first got there, it was all Marines I had in the back seat. And they were all experienced. I mean, just like storybook Marines, and they had their stuff together. I mean, that's all there was to it. They knew how to battle on the ground. They knew how to battle in the air. They knew how to, all the lingo, all the artillery, all the TAC air. They knew it all. They'd been to AO school, and knew that. And then they came back and on the DMZ for 6 months or a year or whatever, and then into our back seats. They were sharp as tacks. I mean, there wasn't anybody better. I mean, those Marines were something. Now, when the Army started giving us artillery in the backseat, well, they were new, but they could handle the artillery, but they hadn't observed from the air, So, and then they didn't have any flight experience, and we had to give them, a little stick time, so they could get us back to the airfield in case we got hit or something. But those Marines, storybook Marines.
How was it over there? Because I think the most dangerous part of Vietnam for the pilots were the first weeks, or with zero experience.
Yes.
So did you lose a lot of young guys?
Yeah. Well, just like the one that got shot down, Charlie was talking about yesterday, Harrison. He and I were in, we were in flight school together, and we came over to Nam at the same time. In fact, there was about 7 or 8 of us from my flight school from Fort Rucker that came to the CATKILLERs.
Oh,
okay. And they had that big a rotation at the time. Well, at the time that we were starting to rotate, they had, a block of us, and they started asking for any volunteers that wanted to go down south. And I said, sure, I'll volunteer. And I only had 2 months to go before I went to the train, started flying the U-21s. And they sent me down to the headhunters. And that was the most boring 2 months of my life.
Okay.
I thought everywhere in Vietnam was battling like we were. Not so. Not anywhere close. I was 3/4 of the time I was registering artillery. Hell, I never did that up there. I mean, you fired around, it was for real. We were fighting up there. Come down south, I mean, if you got in a battle once a month or something, well, that was a big deal, but nothing like ours. I mean, you were in battle just about every day up there on the DMZ. I mean, it was there. If you wanted to fight, there it was.
So, of all the American troops that got stationed in Vietnam, is there a percentage of who are really fighting in combat? Because I think you needed a lot of guys for supply and for everything else.
Well, you had, Highway 1 that went all the way to Dong Ha, and then you had Highway 9 went out towards Khe Sanh and supply all that. In fact, I've got a buddy that's I fly with out here where I keep my airplane that he was a transportation officer in I Corps, and that's what he did. He had a couple of gun trucks, one on each end of the convoys, and he'd run those convoys with all the supplies and everything out to Ashaw Valley, up to Dong Ha, Phu Bai, anywhere, up there, supplying all that.
Okay, yeah. It's logical. So, and Charlie and I think you will also support them. David did the same. All of you guys said the crew chiefs, they were so important to you. Why was that?
Because you never had to say anything to them. They knew their job. You came in, as soon as that prop would stop, they were on that airplane, checking the oil, make sure it's full, putting the pin in, casing the firing mechanism so they could put new rockets in. And they were all over and inspected the airplane for hits and all that. And most of the time, if you got hit, they just take 100-mile-an-hour tape and put over it. I mean, basically, that's what you did.
Yeah.
And they would look through there, make sure you didn't hit any, real member inside that frame. But and they were great. They didn't. I never had any problem with any of them.
Okay.
They were just professional and did their job, and they knew, we were getting our butt shot off. And we'd come back, it wasn't easy.
And you're still close friends with some of those crew chiefs from the past? Are you still in contact?
Yeah. Yeah. Buster, he lives out in California, and he was there at the 50th year reunion we had on the bird dogs there in Fort Fredericksburg, Texas. And he was there and a couple of others, and it's interesting seeing them now and talking with them, and we never pulled any rank with them. If anybody pulled any rank with them, we'd knock them in the head,
Yeah.
They were doing the job just like we were.
Yeah, honestly, they became almost family members, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we had to fight with them, they'd be right beside us. So it was good people.
Hmm.
You had a few guys, and I'm not. We had a few pilots, I want to say, that could have had a little bit more spunk to them.
Hmm.
But everybody knew who the fighters were and who weren't. So everybody knew if you were a fighter, you were going into the action.
Hmm.
That's all there was to it. But I don't remember everybody, really backing off too much, except for this one guy. But anyhow, that's expected. You're gonna have your 10%. But like Charlie would come back and say, and I'm getting ready to take off, and he said, "Hey, look right here on this map. This is what we got going right now. I've been firing on this. A few airstrikes on this. Go up there and check it out. See what else is happening. I'd go up there, take over, or I would just go ahead and take off a lot of times and come up on station and I call him like I called Charlie. I said, "Okay, 19, what you got here?" And he'd start briefing me because he knew it was time for him to rotate back, and I was relieving him. And so he would brief me in the air what's going on, and then I would just start taking over backseat, take over artillery. I'm taking over the TAC air, you know, and doing that. So it was a coordinated effort, no doubt about it. When you were fighting, and every day you could fight up there,
Yeah.
every day. It wasn't going up there and just flying around. Every day you were fighting up there, and that's what surprised me when I went south. I mean, these guys had no clue what goes on in different parts of the country, and so you don't know. I mean, you sent straight up there, and you figure everybody in the country's fighting like this.
I thought the
Not
same,
so.
to be honest.
Yeah. So it wasn't so. So it was. It was different up there. That's why there's a couple of books out about us. And that's why Charlie and I spoke at Oshkosh 3 or 4 times. In the warbird sections there, and you never know. Up there in the in the warbird section, I remember I was sitting up there they had a little hooch up there where we had some food, and I was sitting up there, and this guy came down, sat down beside me, and started asking me about, because he had heard our spiel, asked me about flying the bird dog up there, and kept asking me. Finally, I looked at him. I said, "What do you?" I said, "What'd you fly?" He said, "Oh, I only flew the X-15 in the space shuttle." Hell, I didn't even know I was sitting there talking to an astronaut.
Oh
And
my
he's
God.
interested in what I'm in. Come on.
Yeah, but it is absolutely an amazing story. And I also got here the book. I have to put it here.
Yeah, that's
100 Feet Over
me
Hell.
Yeah, that's me at the top.
I know, sir. And
Yeah.
Charlie also sent me this picture. It's amazing, to be honest. I really like it. Where have I got it? It's here. That's so cool. Look at your eyes. You are a war machine.
Yeah. You know who took that picture, don't you?
No?
Charlie.
Charlie took this picture, really?
He was sitting in the back seat. What happened was, since I was the company IP, I could get an airplane anytime I wanted. Well, the guys in Chulai, the Marine F4 pilots invited us down. Okay. So
Yeah.
I grabbed Charlie, and Charlie's in the back seat. I wouldn't let him fly. If we were going to fly, I always flew. That's just the way it was. I mean, so anyhow, he took this picture, and we were going down there to visit the Marines at the Fox 4 drivers in July and spend a couple of days, and they would buy all our drinks and all that stuff. But that's where that picture came from.
Ah, it's fantastic. And you see on this picture, you see the parachute, but you never wore the parachute. You just sat on it, or?
Yeah, that's correct. We just used it as a bullet bouncer.
Okay.
In the back. I didn't have anything under my seat, just canvas. That's all I had for my seat. I didn't put anything. You got to remember, 21, 22 years old, you're invincible.
Yeah.
It's going to happen to somebody else.
So, yeah. But because I know some guys from the Air Force, they sat on flak vests.
Oh yeah. I just didn't. It was hot enough. The DA was too high over there and full of fuel and rockets, and your back seat with all his gear and all that stuff. I mean, if you climb out at 300 or 400 feet a minute, you were doing good, because you were over gross before you ever took off. So, but that's the way it was.
Incredible. And you, sir, you can make the compare, because the bird dog with all those instruments, my dad flew the bird dog for the Austrian Army. I think Charlie told you, yeah?
Yeah.
And they had all those instruments under the back seat, and they are really heavy, yeah? And when you had rockets, rocket tubes, rockets, you had a two-seater, you had full tanks, and you had all those instruments under the rear seat. So the bird dog was really heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
It was, because when I see sometimes the takeoff runs of the bird dogs, I say, hey, come on. Normally the bird dog is up under let's say 180 feet, and you're airborne.
Yeah. Not over there. I mean, I remember when I first got into it, it was noticeably tail heavy. It was noticeably. I remember the first time flying it over there that you had to get on those rudders a little bit more. And we had a few guys that just couldn't check out, and they gave them desk jobs, But it was a little different. I remember this one guy, Ray Call. He wrote the book CATKILLER 3-2, and he brought a bird dog in up at Dong Ha. He was up running a operation, and a helicopter got hit, and the blade came off and knocked I think it was his right landing gear off.
Yeah.
Up there at Dong Ha, and there was a ditch right before the runway, and he came in and put that left wheel in that ditch and knocked it off, and then went flat and skidded down the runway.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. I mean, you do what you got to do.
Yeah. I read this book when I was on vacation in Egypt. So everyone was playing sand and swimming, and I was reading the CATKILLER.
Okay. We were basically unsupervised. The old man never said nothing to us. I mean, as long as we did our job, he never said a word. He didn't say a word if we got upset with somebody and whatever, because he knew what we were going through. And there was only a handful of us that did that, that really flew up there, consistently. There were other guys that would come up and relieve, when we needed some more. But mostly there was, probably about 6 or 7 of us that only flew up there and did what we did. Yeah, see this guy, I got my arm over, that was my roommate, Jim Hudson. Now, he invented the first DNA equipment, test equipment for DNA. Made a bunch of money, sold his company for a bunch of money, lives down in Alabama. And the guy up there beside me is, he's a lawyer in Houston.
Okay, cool.
And then Charlie.
Charlie, yeah.
And then Pepe, he was 6'5", he's a big old guy.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
And the other guy, I've forgotten his name, Bonning, I think it is. He's a accountant up in Detroit, I think.
But you all made it back home. Oh, that's cool. Okay. But and the other pictures that Charlie sent me, which I shared before, were all of those guys are here. Those are all pilots.
Yes, every one of them. let's see. Yeah, every one of them are pilots.
Okay,
Every one of
wow.
them. And that's Hooper, Bill Hooper. It's leaning on me, on my shoulder right there. He's the one that got hit in the arm with the shrapnel and made it back to the airfield, and landed the airplane and then medevaced out.
Oh,
You
okay.
remember that story?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the guy that was in my back seat, I was checking out when I lost the rudder, was a guy right behind Charlie's left arm in kind of a reddish shirt. John
Oh, yeah, I
Herring.
see him. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the only guy. I just see it. He's wearing short trousers.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. You could wear about anything you wanted to there at the company, and I just stayed in my Marine flight suits. That was kind of just kind of a outfit that not everybody had. So you wanted to flaunt it a little bit,
Yeah, and the guy who is leaning on you also has the same flight suit.
Yeah, yeah, yes. Bill, yeah. He's in Tampa and has a equipment kitchen equipment store. That's what
Okay.
he does.
Okay, cool. How was the band of brothers between you cat killers? You must have been all very close, or?
There he is. Even this day, you can pick up the phone, and if you needed something, they drop everything and do whatever's necessary.
Okay. And how
Now,
was
Charlie,
it over there?
Huh?
How was it over there in Vietnam?
It was the same way. I mean,
Okay.
but basically the first platoon guys kind of stuck together, and we were, kind of looked up to a little bit. We were called the myth makers. Everybody referred to us as the myth makers.
Okay.
And nobody messed with us much. I mean, we sat down there and played poker. We got serious. I remember one guy that other guys, they'd be out there at the bar drinking and carrying on. And one time they decided they're going to come around us and pour some beer on us while playing cards. I told the first guy that poured beer on me, I was going to punch him. Okay. Guy poured beer on me. I punched him. He went to the ground, sat back down. We continued to play cards. So it would get intense. I mean, but we kind of stuck together. The first platoon kind of stuck together.
And in your area where you are, you were all Army aviators, yeah? And you got very close, of course, with the Marines because you were a team, yeah?
Well, what happened, it's just like with Tom Jones, that was OIC at Don Desk. And he and I'd have a, drink together every day. He was wanting to extend, and I was extending in the Army, in Vietnam 6 months. So was he in the Marines. So we decided to go together on a 30-day free leave, So we decided we'd meet up in Wellington, New Zealand. Okay. Well, I got there about 3 or 4 days before he did, and I was bored silly. They closed the bars like about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I said, now that's not going to work. I said, I got to have something to do. So I went to the airfield, and in just 3 or 4 days, I ended up getting me a New Zealand pilot's license. That's how bored I was. Okay. I still got them to this day.
That's cool.
Yeah. Then we went over to Australia, and then when I came back and I went through Singapore, Guadalajara, and then Saigon.
Okay.
Is the way we did it. But
did you ever get in contact with the other platoons, like the Swamp Fox or the Shotguns?
Yes.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, we went to Charlie and I went to, I think it was the Shotguns, I'm not sure, up at Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado Springs. And we got a tour Cheyenne Mountain up there. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Okay, that's where NORAD is. It's in the middle of a granite mountain.
Okay.
Okay, and you see these pictures of the generals sitting around and the big screens on the walls and the missiles coming in. That's where it was.
Okay.
So we got a tour of all of that. I have a buddy that I played football with in college that was 4-star general that was head of NASA too.
Wow.
And so he got us, permission for a tour into there. Okay. But you meet a lot of guys in the service, I tell you. I know guys all over the United States. So, but yeah, we all kind of keep in touch. Like Tom Jones and I keep in touch with the Marines now. We still stay in touch with each other, and we've visited several times. So, but now the CATKILLER, now the others, if they have a reunion close by or something, now we may go, and see them and talk to them. But every one of them I asked, they said, "Oh, we read your book. Now tell us what's real and what's fiction." Seriously, that's what they would say, because they thought we made this stuff up. Seriously, because nothing like that went on down south.
It's so interesting. Even up to now, I spoke with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, including you, 6 bird dog pilots, and everyone tells a little bit a different story. No, not just a little bit. It's a different story. You all had different experiences. You had different procedures, and it's honestly, I'm totally surprised. I'm flashed. It's so interesting to listen to your words. Yeah.
Everybody had their ways, in doing things, and just like when I came back from Vietnam, I asked them to send me anywhere in the world except Fort Rucker, Alabama. Of course, you know where they sent me, Fort Rucker, Alabama.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Charlie and I were bird dog. We came back and we were bird dog instructors there at Fort Rucker together. And then I got into the U-21, and I started instructing in the U-21s there. Mm-hmm. But Charlie stayed in the bird dogs.
But I have to ask you a question, because Charlie spoke about 3 or 4 times about your landing technique, because all of you guys were always doing normally a stall landing, 3-point, but not Doc CLEMENT. You always knew when a guy was landing on wheels, this is Doc.
Yeah. Well, that was just my technique. I could land on any wheel you wanted, and it was just more of a technique that I liked.
Did you teach this landing technique yourself in Vietnam, or?
No, I taught 3-point landing. When I was instructed, I would have them do 3-point landing, and
when you're instructor, of course, I know. But when you flew in Vietnam, you came to Vietnam with 3 points, and then you decided, oh, I'm going to make wheel landings.
Well, I could do anything I wanted.
Okay.
They had these big long runways. I mean, bird dog take off in 1,000 feet. That's all you need or 1,500 feet at the most.
Okay.
But you had these long runways, 3 and 4 and 5, 6,000 feet long. I mean, there's no sense in landing at the end and taxi for 30 damn minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd land wherever I wanted to go on wheel. And when I get about where I'm going to turn, I'd set my tail down and then turn on the taxiway. So that was just my technique.
It's so funny because all tail dragger pilots say flying a tail dragger is the only way of flying. But when it's about wheel landings or 3 points, it's a fight.
Yeah. Well, I do it any way you want, but there's no doubt about it. A tail wheel pilot's a better pilot. Physically better pilot.
Yeah, of course.
And in the airplane.
The topic about directional control, you really have to be a tail dragger pilot to understand it.
Yeah. Well, see, I've checked out a few of them in my bird dog. Okay. Yep. here at my airfield. And what I would do when I check them out, first thing I'd do, put them in a back seat.
Mhm.
Okay. I'd sit in the front seat. And then I would have them taxi that airplane, the bird dog, from the back seat.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
And I would have them do it for 2 or 3 hours.
Mhm.
Okay. That's all they did from the back seat. So if they could directionally control it from the back seat, front seat's going to be a snap.
Mhm.
So when we actually did the first flying, I'd switch seats with them. They'd get in the front seat, and directional control was just easy as hell, from the
Yeah.
front seat,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
could handle the airplane then.
Yeah.
So
The problem is in the back seat, you have the rudder, but you have no brakes in the back seat.
well, we had brakes on. You had a little bit of brakes.
Oh, you had?
on-
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Wasn't the full brakes you had up front, but you had a little bit back there in the back. So once they learned how to do that and could do it from the back seat,
Mhm.
It was a snap from the front seat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I never had any trouble with them directional control after I did that.
Yeah. Did you see any ground loops in Vietnam?
I think I saw one in Pleiku one time.
Okay.
I saw a ground loop there, Air Force, Army bird dog. But that was about it. I've seen some of them come pretty damn close. I've seen some actually ground loop, but not fast enough to do any damage.
Okay. Not to. Okay.
Right. So not like that. These bird dogs over there, but and Don, they, like I say, they were kind of tail directional heavy. I mean, it's not like flying the bird dog here that feels like it's a kite. Over there, it felt like it's more of a tank. You know what I mean?
Of course, of the heavy cross weight. Yeah.
So
because actually now when I fly my bird dog and the fuel tanks are half full, 200 feet, 180 feet, and you're airborne.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and I had that first bird dog I had was a fixed pitch, constant speed. Fixed pitch prop, and the second was constant speed.
What are the differences?
Well, the variable, the Dash 15 had a Dash 15 engine with the constant speed. The prop you could turn, where the fixed pitch prop was all it was just fixed pitch. Period.
No, I don't mean that. Of course, I know what is a fixed pitch and the constant prop. The question was, how was the difference in flying in the performance? About climbing or
the fixed pitch was lighter, and I prefer it over NOM. The constant speed just a little bit more nose heavier, and it just felt heavier. It just feels heavier. And I would prefer the fixed pitch, because you aren't going to 10 miles an hour difference. Who cares?
And the bird dog, for me, I flew really a lot of planes, but when you fly the bird dog and you know it, when you are in the approach and you have down flaps 45 or 60, whatever, and you reduce the throttle, nothing changes. The plane stays as it is, because when I fly the Cessna 182 and you pull out the throttle, the nose goes down. And with the bird dog, nothing happens. It maintains, and that's so awesome in this plane. And also, you're sitting in the middle, you're sitting in the center of gravity. The whole plane moves around you, and you're absolutely in the center. It's so fantastic to fly.
Yeah. I come in, sometimes just if it's basically me, I'll come in, and on downwind, I'll just go to 60 degrees of flaps and throw my nose over about 45 degrees and just do a slow 270 right onto the runway.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And land, and roll out maybe 100, 200 feet, you know.
Yeah.
And then out here, I know there's a couple of guys whenever the wind gets up and they knew I was out in my bird dog and I'd be in the pattern, they'd come out there to watch me, you know, see if I'm going to ground loop, you know. You know, people look at, you know, like Charlie and I, we got thousands of hours. We got probably over 30,000 hours flight time. And that's all we've known is airplanes, you know. And I've bought and sold, I don't know, 10, 15 airplanes. And
wow.
And that's what I do. You know, it gives me something to do. See, I've been retired right at 20 years now. I had a heart attack with open heart surgery in 05. Okay. And the guy that cracked my chest did a heck of a good job because I hadn't looked back since.
Okay.
And that's when I had to stop. I was 6 months from 60, and I had enough sick leave to carry me through to my retirement. So, but that's what happened on me. And then I had to start jumping through FAA's hoops. And that's no fun. That's a shame.
But the point here is I want to give my son one day the opportunity to listen to those interviews because it's so important, yeah. Because people now forget what is war. They have no idea, yeah. And even for me, it's far away. I'm the third generation after war. My son is the fourth generation after war, yeah. And when he hopefully will fly the bird dog one day, or not my son. Primarily, I do it for my son, but of course, many other people out there want to hear your stories. And when, sir, I wish you get 120 years, but one day all of you great guys are gone, and that's why I want to keep your stories alive. They have to be told, definitely.
Oh, that's true. That's true, and we appreciate it. I mean, really do. You know, our thing was just putting the books together.
Yeah.
And those things you think are easy, but they aren't. You know, we miss Jim Hooper. Did you ever know Jim Hooper?
No, sadly not, but I know that he wrote the book, yeah.
Yeah, but he was there in England.
Okay.
And that's where he died. But he was I think I can say it now, but he was MI6.
Okay. That Charlie told me.
Yeah. And he was pretty interesting fellow. But he was excellent. I could send him a story. And when he got through with it, you know, in the book, I mean, it was, you know, just great. I mean, he was real good with words and everything and how to present something. So he'd written 3 or 4 books, but he was good at it. But see, what happened was, the book was dedicated to me and Jim Hudson. Okay, if you look at the front of the book. And the reason why is Jim Hudson, we needed some money to give Jim Hooper some money to write the book. Well, Hudson was the one that sold his company for $25 million or so. Okay. Oh, he's the one that, you know, he's the one that came up with the first DNA test equipment in the world. Okay. So he made a bunch of money doing that. And he's still in the field of it.
Smart guy.
So he gave Jim $25,000, I think it was. And then I started on the CATKILLERS to send in stories. You know, and I tell guys, I said, look, you know, we're going to do this book. You need to send in your story. Well, it took me 2 damn years to get Charlie to send in the damn story, you know. And all these guys, oh, yeah, I'll do that. And you don't hear from them. 6 months later, I'm doing the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
Finally, we get the book published, you know, and now these guys say, oh, I wish I'd sent you this story. I said, how many times did I ask you?
Yeah.
You know, so So that's the way the book came out. We got some stories, some we didn't, and I'm glad we got Charlie because, he had more information than anybody, really.
Mm.
He's the one, he's the glue that keeps the cat killers together.
Okay.
And so when something happens, it usually comes out that he sends it to us and let us know what's going on. And if we have a reunion or do anything like that, he's the one that does all the communication, gets us all together.
Mm.
So he's good at that, which I'm not any good at. I'll tell my story and go on that road.
Hey, Doc, you also have been an airline pilot. How did this happen?
I had a buddy that was coming through cranking up a helicopter airline in St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And they needed somebody that could be director of operations and vice president. And they asked me to come down to do it.
Hey,
and
cool.
I went down there and stayed for a year on St. Thomas and got them started. And then after about a year, I said, I had all this rock I want to be on. It's only about 12 miles long and 2 or 3 miles wide. And I just, I had enough of that and I was going to do something else. And that's by the time my dad went on. And that's when I got on with Piedmont. And I was 39 years old when I got on with Piedmont. Had 10,000 hours at that time.
Wow, 10,000. Wow.
Yeah. And so I started out with Piedmont, and within 3 years, I was a captain. And
that's fast. Wow.
Yeah, we were moving pretty good. We were moving right on along. Piedmont was.
So you came in very early because a friend of mine who was my flight instructor, he was for 22 years second officer.
Okay. Yeah. I can believe it. But Piedmont was just moving at the time. We were doubling about every 5 years we would double. We were doing about 20% a year increase.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And
if the company is increasing that fast, it's the best chance to climb up the ladder.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I got up there and I ended up on the Airbus 319, 320, 321.
Okay.
And I flew the 6-7 to Europe, across that ocean 100 times 1 year, into Frankfurt and London and all the places over there, So I did that, and then I moved into the left seat, and then I was a check airman on the jet up there, and flying with the guys that just came out of simulator and got certified there, and we'd have to give them 25 to 40 hours depending, and that's what I did for a good while.
Yeah, like Charlie. I think Charlie was also a check airman,
Yeah. Charlie was a good
MD-88, 757, 767, so far as I know.
Right, I flew those, yeah. And but I was a check airman on the Airbus and the F-100 Fokker.
Fokker,
yeah. So I did that, but Charlie had a good career. He was a good airline pilot. I heard him say that he was better than I am in airline. We'll have to discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, but he said you were the better bird dog pilot.
yeah. Well, we all time, teasing each other, but anyhow, Charlie was probably as far as I was concerned, the best combat pilot up there for what we did. I mean, he was just atrocious. I mean, he knew where everything was up there. He could, spit it out to you. He would, when somebody got on to him, he was after them. If he saw something, he was on them. And he didn't give up until they were gone. I'm telling you. And he brought a lot of planes back, shot full of holes. And see, I was a check airman up there too. So a lot of these airplanes that got shot up, I was the one that had to fly them from Dong Ha back to Fubai because I was a check airman. And doing that, but also flying missions, up there with Charlie. In fact,
Okay.
if I remember correctly, the first time Charlie went up on the DMZ, I was his second ship and showing him the different sites up there, from the Ben High River on down Alpha 1, Alpha 3, and Conti-N and all those places, up there. And because when he first got there, let me tell you, I thought he was a real gold bricker. Because when he got to the company, he was playing volleyball and twisted his ankle. Well, for the next damn week, every time I come back to Fupa, he'd be in the club writing letters and having a drink, with a cast on his damn foot. I said, what a gold bricker this guy is, and I wouldn't even talk to him, and not many people would at the time. He was brand new. So when you're new, you're just a fly on the wall, And then finally, when he started flying, he wanted to go up. He'd heard all the stories about the first platoon, second, third, fourth platoon. He wanted to go to the first platoon. And normally they only sent us single guys up there, and the normal rotation at that point was 6 months. Because they figured if you survive 6 months, you're doing pretty good up there, and then you could come off and go to the second platoon like I did. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So I spent 6 months up there, and until I just couldn't take any more of their firing and all that stuff. I'll tell you a story I shouldn't have done, but I went all the way up to the first main city up there one day. In the Bird Dog, about 40 or 50 miles north than what I should have been. And a Sunday afternoon, and thought it was, they're going to get me a good target. So I went up there and we found a truck park, and they were just getting ready to line those trucks up and head south with them because they were all full. And I had the Battleship New Jersey off coast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, the Battleship New Jersey has 16-inch guns. They fire 2,700-pound round HEs. Okay. And they can fire at 20 miles, but you don't know where it's going to hit in 20 miles.
Yeah.
So if you could keep it within 5 miles of the coast, you could do some damage. But anyhow, I got up there and all of a sudden the whole world opened up on my ass.
Ooh.
And I mean to tell you, I'd never seen anything like it. I was jinxing that airplane, jerking it, turning it, climbing it, doing everything I could, and I was heading, working my way towards the coast, what we call feet wet. Anything off the shore is called feet wet. Well, the New Jersey was out there, and I wanted to get towards the New Jersey because if I went down, I wanted somebody to come get me, And I tell you what, I've never been fired at that much and that long in all my life. Oh. And I finally made it out there feet wet, and I was probably 3 or 4 miles and only about 3 feet off the water at that time. And I started out like at about 8,000. Okay. But there was quad 50s on me. There was 37, 85 millimeter flak. All over the place. I really thought I was going to be dead, and it just wouldn't stop. It just wouldn't stop, And finally I got down there and about 3 or 4 miles off and about 3 feet above the water, and finally turned south, and you got a nice light there, and that's what I ended up doing, going south. And I said, man, I've had enough of this. And I was supposed to be up there in North Vietnam. We had 2 ship missions. Charlie told you about that. And I was high ship
and low ship, huh?
Right. Yeah. And I was high ship, and this guy low ship, he passed I don't know how many targets of opportunity as far as I was concerned. I got tired of trailing around behind it, So I just took off north and Of course, he goes back and tells the old man, I left him, which I did, and the old man called me in the office, and he says, asked me about it, knew I was going to lie about it, just knew I was. I told him exactly what happened, and he says, well, okay, don't let it happen again. I said, don't worry about that.
Oh my God.
And then I went down to the second platoon, and the second platoon was mainly operating out of Ashaw Valley. And I'd go take some missions into Ashaw Valley, and that was a different world in itself.
But
and
still with the bird dog. But still with the bird dog?
Still in the bird dog.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All this is in the bird dog. Yeah. I just went down the second platoon in the bird dog. I was still the company check pilot. Mm-hmm. So after the, dinner meal, I would have to take the new guys or guys that were due for a check ride and take them around, the patch there at Fubai and, sign them off. Mm-hmm. Now then, and I'm getting ready to leave here in a couple of months out of Fubai, and I extended over there to fly U-21s, and I went down to the train. Okay, so I was Lieutenant General Cochran's pilot when I went down there. But anyhow, I was checking this guy out, John Harry, super guy from Tennessee, and he was actually my platoon leader. But he was going to be the next check airman, so I had to check him out. Well, when you check him out, you have your guy in the back seat because that's where he's going to be flying from, checking out these guys. So I'm sitting up there in the front seat, and we got this little strip out there off the coast of Fubai, and nothing there. And we were making approaches in there. And we were on final, and all of a sudden John says, "Hey, you got it." I said, "You're looking good." I said, "You're doing fine." He said, No, take it. I don't have any rudder." And I reached up, grabbed the stick, and put my feet on the pedals, and both of them went flat to the ground.
Oh, the cable snapped?
The cable was broke.
Yeah.
And what happened was people shooting out the window with the casings falling in the airplane and falling down in the floorboard had cut the cable.
Boy. Okay.
So now I've got an airplane. I don't have any rudder cable. Okay. So, I throw the coal to it, and what happens? You start going around in a left circle, and I'm climbing that thing trying to get some altitude, figure out what I'm going to do here, and I get to playing with it for about 20 or 30 minutes. I would pull the power off, and the plane would turn to the right, and you put your power on, plane would turn to the left, and I started playing with that where I could keep the nose going straight. Okay. Then I called Fubai Tower, which I was only about, 20, 30 miles away. And that's where our home base was anyhow. And John in the back seat, he calls the company and on the company FM and tells them, hey, we're coming in and we're probably going to ground loop, Yeah. And, so everybody out there in the company comes out there with the cameras, because they've never seen a ground loop before, So I lined the thing up, and I told the tower, I said, get your fire trucks ready and everything, because I expected, with no rudder, you're gonna ground loop it. Somehow I kept playing with that all the way down, and I never ground looped it. Huh? Yeah, I didn't have any brake.
The brakes were also gone.
Yeah, everything was flat to the ground.
Oh my God.
Yeah, all I had was the throttle and the stick. And I milked that thing all the way down and got it down and didn't ground loop it. And
incredible.
And everybody in the company, they were kind of pissed at me because I didn't give them a real picture show, But anyhow, I brought a bird dog in without a rudder.
Okay. Incredible. Yeah. I didn't think it's possible, but the wind for sure was also good. If you would have a lot of crosswind, it's not possible.
Oh no, I couldn't have done it with a lot. The wind was pretty calm.
Yeah.
So I didn't have. Thank God I didn't have that problem.
But still insane.
Wow. It was still kind of tricky bringing it in. I tell you.
Yeah.
But anyhow, just some of the things you have to do.
The final question is, I also asked it to Charlie. What are your feelings and emotions today when you look back at this time?
Vietnam?
At the Vietnam time in the bird dog, yes.
Well, it was a good experience. We shouldn't have been there. War's no good. Does nobody any good. But that was our time and our space, and that's what we did.
Okay.
You know.
Another question is, because I never asked it to someone, how was the relationship to the guys over there, to the Vietnamese guys? Did you have contact with those guys, or were you just in the camp and you had no contact to them?
I really didn't have much contact with them at all. Up there at Dong Ha, you just didn't see any. And down in Phu Bai, we had hooch maids. That was about it. That, you know, would shine our boots and wash our clothes. But you had Hue Citadel, which was the capital of Vietnam at one time, and there was guys in 2nd and 3rd platoon. That that's a picture of me with hooch maid, and you see the flight line is just right up there where those sandbags are.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and that's the Nomex flight suit, but Marine. But we didn't have that much, except, you know, like I say, the hooch maids. I never went up to Hue. I went up there one time, and the hair was sticking up around my neck, you know, and kind of spooky. So I left there, and I got the same. Believe it or not, after a while up there on the DMZ, I could tell you within 3 or 4 seconds of being shot at. Be the same way. The hair kind of stick up on the back of your neck. You knew something was coming. And you start jinxing, and here it comes. Bah, 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 bah. You know, it's funny how you get so attuned to that. Your body gets so attuned to it. I mean, you live it and eat. And that's something else about coming off the DMZ. Every day we were having adrenaline kick. Okay. Twice a day. I mean, we were in battles. Okay. You'd have adrenaline kick. When you came off the DMZ, it was like you went into solitary. I mean, it was, you know, and you were missing the adrenaline kick. It was just like a drug.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I understand.
And I think that's one reason Charlie stayed up there, because he saw the other guys coming off drinking and, you know, and carrying on like that. And he liked the adrenaline kick, and it kicked us all. But believe it or not, you know, you really get adrenaline kick from it after you do it day after day after day. And
but
then you come off of it.
But how was it when you came home? Because you flew your last mission, and then you came after your last mission direct home to the States?
No. When I came off my last mission, I went down to the train flying U-21s.
Ah, you told me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but then I was into a new field. I was flying every day, the U-21 and all that. So that kind of took care of it. But coming off the DMZ, going in the 2nd platoon, I was bored silly, and you were just you know, you were missing it. You were missing the kicks. You didn't realize it, but you were.
Okay. Well.
You know, and it was just like being on a drug.
Yeah, I understand, and I think that's also the reason why all of you guys thought you were bulletproof. Yeah,
that's right. It's going to happen to somebody else, not me.
Okay. Yeah.
But they finally got my attention when I went way up north, and they opened up on me. That pretty much finished me off. I said, okay, all right, I've been up here 6 months. I've had enough of this. I'm going to die next. You know?
Okay.
So
when you came home, did you see any protesters or anything like this?
Oh yes,
I
remember going through going through the Seattle airport, and I was spit at, kicked at. And the first thing I did, seriously, and the first, and I know why they took our guns away from us before we got on the airplane now, because I'd have killed those son of a bitches.
Okay.
I mean, they had no clue what they were, what they were doing. And first thing I did, I got a hotel room, put on my civilian clothes, and packed up my uniform and headed out. You didn't want to, and you didn't say anything to anybody. You didn't tell people you were in Vietnam. They would start in on you, and that's a good thing that, after I left Vietnam, I ended up in Alaska, and I'd be up there drinking and carrying on. Anybody in the bar say anything about Vietnam, I was on them like a bad habit, And Alaska got a lot of that anxiety out of me when I was up there. But you could feel it. Somebody say something, you tell them you were in Vietnam, and they were a protester or something, you didn't want to come around me, I can tell you.
It's for me. It's did those guys tell you when you came back? Hey, be careful. There might be protesters. Protesters. Did someone tell you that? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. At the airport, flight attendants would tell you.
Okay.
We got protesters, and that's when I put on my civvies and headed across the states in my civvies. And you didn't say nothing. You learned not to say anything. I remember I got home. Now I've been in Vietnam for 19 months. Okay. And one of the buddies here I met, and he said, well, where have you been the last few months? That's where these people are coming from. They had no clue. They're going to work at 8 and coming home at 5 and got raising kids. I'm out fighting the war. I had no clue what was going on. So,
and what I don't understand, if they are against the government or because they sent you to the war, that's okay. But you as a soldier, you did it. You did your job. That's it.
That's correct.
Stupid people. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. That's the way it is. But
Okay. Doc, thank you for this interview. It was amazing. Luckily, we figured it out today.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the effort you put into this. And it's been my pleasure to get to know you.
I will come to the States, and I will make a tour through the States. I want to stay 3 or 4 weeks in the States, and it would be a pleasure if we could meet.
Well, anytime you come through this area, I've got an extra bedroom.
Thank you, sir. That's very nice of you. Okay, have a nice day. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Ciao.
Gentlemen, this was Captain Edgar Doc Clement, United States Army. Oh my God, we had so much fun doing this. Doc, thank you very much. And to all of you guys watching this video, please like and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up, and thanks for watching.